Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video we will have a tutorial for the Pane sweater that I'm wearing right now. We will talk a bit more about this sweater and about this design, but first of all, my name is Catalina and I'm the person behind by Catalina Designs, and I share with you on this channel crochet tutorials, not that often needing tutorials, and we also have a weekly journal when we come every week and chat about crochet. So if this is something that you will want to watch and follow, then please subscribe to my channel and I will be really grateful for that. Now, about the Pane sweater. This sweater is a design from 2021, I think, so it's from 2 years ago. And when I designed this sweater, it was just to try out this technique. I had some one single color skeins that I wanted to use for some colorful project, and basically I was inspired by another design of mine, which was even before that, sometimes in my my beginnings with this construction and with this squares or rectangle that are joined as you go. So I tried it out because that one was a mesh stitch pattern, so it was double crochet, chain one, double crochet, and somehow I needed to make it not that that meshy so not with so many holes, but I did like this stitch pattern because I was using it before for the Wrap Me in Love sweater, or I think in Pierre's blouse I also used this stitch pattern. So it's one row half double crochet and one row mesh or with windows, so we're just chaining one and skip one in between to half double crochet. And I really love the look of the stitch pattern, and I said that I need to try it again. Because it was different yarn weight, because it was something else, somehow I didn't follow the same construction, but it's something similar. And back then I didn't know that this sweater will be such a thing. I didn't know that it will work, so I just started to work on it in a weekend, and by the end of the weekend I just had both panels put together, and I said, okay, this is a thing. And then when I wanted to make the video tutorial, I wrote the pattern, everything was okay. But for the video tutorial, I didn't want it to just make another sweater, so I was trying to explain on a small sample the construction, how we're working the rectangles and so on. For some of you who watched that video tutorial, it was enough. For some it wasn't, as usual. And this year I was thinking, because again I got some single color skeins, and I said what to make with them, and I thought that it would be a good idea to just make another Pane sweater and to make a proper video tutorial. So here it is with this brand new Pane sweater. I did a few changes, but this doesn't change the pattern. I didn't want it, my tension also changed from 2 years ago, and maybe you know that, but when you're using a different brand of the crochet hook, even if it's the same size, you might get a different tension, so this is also important. So I was using a different brand of a crochet hook, and I was thinking to size down. So instead of a 6mm, I was using a 5.5mm crochet hook. So in the end, I ended up with a bit shorter sweater than it was the original design, but it was perfect like this. And also I think I added a few more rows for the sleeves, but because they are like worked top down, this didn't affect too much the initial pattern, because if you need that to add more rows, then you will add more rows. Now I want to tell you a bit on how you can make the sweater, because some of the people said that they couldn't make it, that wasn't getting to the gauge or something like that. So I will show you or explain you how to adjust this on your size. So we will be using as reference the bust, and of course that after measuring your bust, and we will work with bust width, so everything that it's around your bust, then you will need to divide it by 2 to get kind of the width of your bust circumference. And then of course to that measurement you'll need to add the ease. So the positive ease meaning depending on how you would like your sweater to fit, to add those centimeters, that room between your body and the sweater. Once you have the width, it's easier for you if you will keep the same numbers of squares. They don't need to be different colors. You can work, I don't know, in 2 colors, 3 colors, depending on how much yarn do you have. I simply had more colors right now, so I said that I will want to use them as many as possible. So if you're going from 5 squares, then the number of rows will give you the width. So if you're going to make like a swatch, like a small square like this one, then you will calculate how many rows you will need to get to the desired width of your sweater. Once you have the number of rows, the total number of rows, you will divide it by 5 because you will have 5 squares, and of course that you will choose the if it's not perfectly divisible, then you will find that number that will to have a number of rows. Okay, now once you have the number of rows that you will need to work for 1 square, meaning in 1 color, then you're basically kind of ready to go with the width. Now to know how many stitches to work on, because this is like we are working this piece over here, then we are adding this piece over here, and we are adding this piece over here. So once you have the width, then you can talk about the length. So for the length, you will decide how long you want your sweater to be, and then of course calculate how many stitches you will need to get to that length. And because we have 3 squares in length, but of course you can add 4 or 5, or depending how long do you want it to be, decide how many squares do you want. For example, here you will divide the total number of stitches that you will need for the length into 3 and see how many stitches you will need for each square. So this is kind of what is about with how to calculate and how to make the sweater. Doesn't matter what yarn you will choose, or doesn't matter what hook size you will choose. Basically it will help you to figure out how to calculate the beginning of the sweater and how to go farther on. Then for the sleeves it will be easier. You will have to see how this is not the shaping sleeve, so simply we are going with the same number of stitches, but it can be tapered if you want, so you can do the decreases because this is just working row by row, so it's simple. And you will calculate the width that you need, and then of course measuring on your sweater armhole and see with how many stitches to start. Then the neckline is shaped, and in my previous design I was because it's from here, so we are just starting here, and I was decreasing 2 by 2 stitches for 3 rows to have this oval shape of the neckline. With this one I just went straight like a square, so here Basically this is like this, and a bit wider than in the original design because I didn't want it to have like a neckline that is too close to my neck. So as you can see, even if I shape it as a square or as a rectangle over here, it does take the shape of an oval, which is okay. So yeah, this was about the sweater construction. I hope you will find it helpful to help you make the sweater as you wish, with the yarn that you have, and of course in the size that you want, with the fit that you want, because with these few tips you can customize the sweater as you wish. So now that we have everything ready, let's just jump into the tutorial and see how to make the Pane sweater. Okay, so these are the colors that I am using right now. I have 7 colors this time, and in the original design I used only 5. You will see that 2 of them I just replaced them. So the teal and this minty, I don't know, I was just switching between them, but you can use as many colors as you have, and as long as you like how they are matching together, then you are good to go. All the yarns that are here are the yarns that I got from Furls. It's the Wonder acrylic yarn, and I also have an Hobby XL Bingo XL. All of them are acrylic yarn and is a medium weight, so worsted or Aran weight. I will be using this time a 5.5mm crochet hook. Maybe I will use this too as well, but you can use in the original pattern I was using a 6mm crochet hook. If you get to the gauge, meaning into the stitch pattern to have 12 stitches and 8 rows in a 10 centimeter square. So now we will start with our first row of squares, and we will chain 21. For the size small that I'm making, I will chain 21. So if you have the same gauge, then you can follow the same numbers. If not, and you calculate it as I explained it at the beginning of the video, then you should chain the number of stitches that you need. Now we will chain 3, and we have the first chain 2 as the first half double crochet. Then the third is the leg of the first half double crochet. Fourth is the stitch that we will have to skip, and we will go into the 5th stitch and work a half double crochet. Then chain 1, skip the next stitch and go into the next one and work a half double crochet. And we will repeat until the end of the row. And we will finish the row with chain 1 and 1 half double crochet into the last stitch. And now we will start a solid row, so we will chain 2, which will count as a first half double crochet, and then we will need to half double crochet into each stitch until the end of the row. You can do the 2 half double crochet into each space if you want, and then skip the next half double crochet, but always count the stitches and make sure that you have the same number of stitches, not to mess it up, and to increase or decrease with one stitch. If you don't like this how it's going, then you can go with one half double crochet into each stitch, and at the end of the round you should have the same number of stitches you started with. In my case, I will need to have 21 stitches. Now the third row will be again a mesh stitch row, and we will chain 3 and turn, and then skip the second half double crochet and go into the third and work a half double crochet. Then chain 1 and skip 1 and work one half double crochet in next, and we will repeat to the end of the row. Okay, now we will repeat row 2 and 3 until we will have in total 10 rows. Or depending on your size, you need to make as many rows as you decided to have for one square. Now we will change the color, so I just cut the previous color and we will change to the second one, and we will repeat now the same pattern and until we will have the same number of rows as for the first square. And you will need to repeat after each square. After finishing the number of rows for each square, you will need to change the color until you will have 5 squares in total, or rectangles. They are more looking like a rectangle, not like a square. So now I started with a mesh stitch row because it's how my next row will need to be made. If you have a different size and maybe your square is ending with the same row as the first one, then you should follow and repeat the same pattern, alternating one row in mesh stitch row and one row in solid row, and to repeat the same number of rows for each square. So now I will keep repeating the pattern, working 10 rows with each color until I will have 5 squares. Now we're about to start, after finishing all 5 squares, to start the second round of squares, and we will start with the color that it was the last one, and then following the same colors. We will rejoin the yarn into the first stitch that we have on the first square, and then we will start from here and chain 21, or the number of stitches that you need for your square. Then of course we will chain 3, I think I already node. So chain 3 and then into the 5th stitch we will work the first half double crochet, and then chain 1, skip 1 stitch and work 1 half double crochet in next. And we will continue until finishing all the stitches. And then when we will get at the end of the round, we will need to connect this round with the correspondent round into the first square. Okay, so if you have 2 stitches at the end, it's okay. So you will need to chain 1 and make sure that you have the correct number of stitches. We will not count the first joining stitch, and now we will connect this round. So first I will go with the slip stitch into the top of the chain 2. Okay, and then I will chain 2 and go into the top of that half double crochet, so the second row of the first square. And now we will turn and we will start working 1 half double crochet into each stitch. Okay, and the last stitch. And then we will chain 3 and turn. Skip the next half double crochet and go into the third one. And we will repeat to the end of the row. And we will do the joining again. Okay, now we will chain 1 and go into the second chain of chain 2 that we have on the correspondent row at the first square. Then chain 2 and go into the top of the half double crochet that is on the next row, and slip stitch. And now we will turn and work 1/2 double crochet into each stitch. And we will have to repeat this for all the squares that we have. So I will work 10 rows with this color, then I will change and work again the next 10 rows with the next color that I will want to use, and we will repeat the same joining until we finish and we have all 5 squares. So to explain a bit more, the first slip stitch is to join the current row, then we will chain 2 and join again, and chain 2 is basically like a turning chain, and we're connecting the next row that we're about to work with the first row of squares. Now I will change the color. Normally I will use then the colors from the first square. I started with the color for the last one, and then I will start with the first, second, third and fourth. But now I want to change between these two colors, these two teal colors. I don't know exactly what color it is, because I want to use all 7 colors. So I thought that these two are more appropriate as shade, and I said to switch between them, and I did the same with the pink and red. So now we will repeat the same after changing the color, working the mesh stitch row, the mesh stitch pattern to the end of the row. And at the end of the row we will connect this row and the next one with the second square of the first row of squares. So now we will go again into the second chain of the pink color, then we will chain 2 and go into the top of the next row, double crochet at the edge, half double crochet, and then turn and work 1/2 double crochet in each stitch. And we will continue like that until we will finish the next row of square, meaning that you will need to have 5 squares in total. Okay, let's keep on going and adding those squares until we finish our second row of squares. Okay, we finished the second row of squares, and now we are at the third row, which will be the last one from the front panel. I think I forgot to mention that we are working at the front panel. And we will now, on this row of squares, we will shape the neckline, and this means that on the second square we will shorten the row so that we can have that square shape and the front panel to be a bit lower than the back panel. And we will do that starting with the second square, and then the third will be worked with the same, with fewer stitches, and then on the first square, fourth square, we will work a few rows in fewer stitches, then we will have to increase again. So now I'm rejoining the last color that I used for the second row of squares, and now I will work the first square as usual, including and also the first 5 rows of the second square. We will work them as we did until now. Okay, so again I'm starting in the 5th stitch and then starting with a mesh stitch row, and at the end we will join with the first square correspondent row of the first square of the second row of squares. There are too many square words in this. Okay, so I finished already the first square, and now we are about to start the second one, and as I said, we will work as it is up to row 5, and then when we will turn on the row 6, we will leave through 3 spaces open, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches that we will let them as they are, and then we will turn the row. But we will get there. Now let's just work the first 5 rows. Okay, so I finished the first 5 rows, and now I will turn on the 6th, and as I said, I want to leave 3 spaces open, or 2, or depending on how low you want to go with your front panel. I think I will go for 3, and then I will stop on when I have 3 spaces left, meaning 6 stitches. I will stop, and then I will turn my row. Okay, so this was my last stitch. The rest of the stitches will remain like this, and now I will turn and I will continue to finish this square, but working only into the stitches, same as the next square. And now I will count how many rows I have left on this square, and I will work the same number of rows on the fourth one, because I worked the 6th row with less stitches. Then I will have to work the same to work 5 rows with the same number of stitches. I'm talking about the 4th square right now, and then starting with the 6th row we will need to increase those 6 stitches that we have less right now, to increase and continue working with the total number of stitches. Now I will continue to work like that the rest of this square and the next one. Okay, so I finished the square number 2 and the square number 3, and now we will work 5 rows from the square number 6. We will work 5 rows with the same number of stitches that we have right now, and then starting on the 6th row we will need to increase those 6 stitches to get back to the same number of stitches that we start with. So I just started, I worked the first 5 rows, and now we're about to start the 6th row, and I will show you right away how to add those stitches. Let's just work half double crochet in each stitch to the end of the row. And now at the end of the row we will start making foundation half double crochet to add those 6 stitches that we need to have. So to do that we will yarn over, go into the side of the last half double crochet that we did, yarn over and pull out a loop, then yarn over, pull through only the first loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3, and we have now the first foundation half double crochet. To make the second one we will just insert the hook into the bottom, that V that is formed at the bottom of this foundation half double crochet, and we will proceed the same, and we will repeat until we will have 6 stitches in total. You can count the all stitches and make sure that you have the same number of stitches that we said that we will start to, depending on the size, or if you did your own measurements, or if you're working with a different type of yarn, then to have the same number of stitches. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I need one more. Two more. Okay, and now I have the number of stitches that I needed, and now I will chain 3 and turn, finish this square, and then start working on the next one in the same established pattern. Okay, now I will continue to finish this square and the last one that I have from this row. With this row of square we finish with the squares, we finish with the front panel. If you want more length, you can add, before starting shaping the neckline, you can add an extra row of squares. Or of course, if you want to work also with 3 rows of squares, you can go with more stitches per square. So now I will finish this and then we will meet again to start the back panel. Okay, we finished the front panel and now we will start working on the back panel. The process will be the same, only that on these squares or these rows over here that are shorter, then we don't need to join and we will work the irregular row, finishing with half double crochet, starting with chain 3, and that's it. So we don't have stitches to join or rows to join with, so this is the only difference. After the first row of squares of the front back panel, then we will continue adding the next 2 rows in the same manner as we did until now. So now I'm starting to chain for my base of my first square, and we will do the same into the 5th stitch. We will start with a half double crochet, and let's just work up to the end of the 5th row of 2nd square, and then I will show you how to continue with the 6th row without having to join the current row, actually the next row. Okay, so when we will get at the row 5, we will basically join only that row, the current row that we are working, and then we will have to just simply turn. So like here, I'm joining with the top of this chain 2 over here, and now I will simply chain 2, which will count as a first half double crochet, and then I will turn and start working half double crochet into each stitch. So I changed 2, I don't have with who to join, with which stitch to join, so I'm simply turning and going back with my row. And starting with this row, the next ones until we will start joining again will be the same. So we don't have stitches or rows with who to join, so we simply continue and working like simple rows. And when we will get to finish this one over here, which will be the 5th, on the 6th row or on the 5th, after turning to go for the 6th row, we will need to turn again. So to finish the next row, we will simply go with half double crochet into the 2nd chain, and then chain 2 and turn. And I will keep working until I will get to the joining again, so I can show you back then or then where how do you need to work those rows from there. Okay, so I finished the 5th row of the 4th square, and let's see how we will finish this. So I will finish the last stitch, the last half double crochet, and then I want to make a slip stitch into the bottom of this the correspondent row, because I want to join this corner as well. And then I will chain 2 and go into the top of the next double crochet, half double crochet with the slip stitch. So this is how we started to join, and now I will go and finish, turn and working the next row. And from here we will continue to finish this fourth square, and then we will work the fifth with joining this time, and it will be the last square of the first row from the back panel. And then we will continue to add the rest of the rows. So we will still have 2 more rows of squares to add to finish the front panel. So this was the first row, and now we will add row number 2 and row number 3 into the same manner as we did until now. Again, if you decided to work more rows of squares, then you should have for the back panel the same number of rows. Okay, now that we finished the back panel, we will start working on the sleeves, because I realized that going with the length of 1 square on each side from the shoulder seam for the sleeve, it was too less, so I needed to go further into the second square so I can have the number of stitches that I needed for my sleeve width. So you can measure and decide how many stitches you'll need for the sleeve. Try to be as proportional as possible, and of course that you will need an uneven number of stitches or multiple of 2 plus 1, because we will work into the same stitch pattern, alternating 1 mesh stitch row and 1 solid row. Because I will start with the solid row, as the row at the edge is with a mesh stitch row, then I turn my work on the wrong side, so I will have the same look of the stitches for the sleeves as well. And from the second square over here, I let 3 spaces. Yeah, so I have 1, 2, 3 until the next square. And yeah, you can count how many stitches you'll need, and depending on that to calculate with from where you need to start the sleeve. Okay, so my first row over here will be a solid row, as I said, and then we will keep alternating 1 solid row, 1 mesh stitch row, until we will reach the desired length. Here for the sleeves, you can alternate the colors as you wish. You can keep the same number of rows, meaning that working 10 rows with one color, 10 rows with another color. But for example, in my case, I think I didn't have enough for all the color to finish 10 rows, or at least 10 rows on each sleeve. So I kind of just mix and match the colors as I have them left, meaning that I could work 7 rows, for example, with one color, or you get it what I mean. So you simply play with the colors that you still have left, and the sleeves doesn't need to be the same. You can choose different colors. For example, I was looking at the edge of the sweater on the front panel, because you cannot the sleeve will be back and front panel as well, and I was looking at the edge and trying to start with a different color than one that it was at the edge, especially for the shoulders where they meet together. So yeah, and then you will continue to work as many rows as you wish until you get to the desired length. For the original sample I worked 27 rows, but I think for this one I did 33. So it's up to you how many rows you will want to work. Is up to you, meaning that depends on the length of your arms and how long you want your sleeves to be. And yeah, so we will simply alternate these 2 rows, and then we will we will continue alternating color as you wish to mix them, and of course as you have left. And at the end I will use the cream color because I still have one skein full. So for the edges, the ribbing, I will use this color. So after finishing one sleeve, you will need to work into the same manner the second one. And of course, because remember that that first sleeve we needed to start on the wrong side because I wanted to keep the same look of the stitch. On the other side, I started with a mesh stitch row, and I needed to start it on the right side. So pay attention on your edge row, which one is the first for the sleeve and how to start it. Now we will work on the ribbing and add the sleeve, and for the ribbing I used single crochet into the back loop only. I will work a first row in single crochets because this row is ending in half double crochet. It wasn't really necessary, but yeah, if you want you can add an extra single crochet row. Now for the cuffs and for all the ribbing, I think at the bottom as well, I will use a single crochet into the back loop only ribbing. For the cuffs I will chain 11 because I want my my cuff to be 10 stitches wide, and I will switch with a smaller crochet hook size, and I'm using a 4.5mm crochet hook because I want my stitches from my cuff to be more dense. And now starting with the second stitch, we will single crochet into each stitch until we're getting to the edge. And then we will slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the sleeve edge, then turn. You need to skip those 2 slip stitches and then go with 1 single crochet into the back loop only to the end of the row. If you watch some of my others tutorial where I'm using a back loop only ribbing, doesn't matter if it's a single crochet or a slip stitch, I do like that the last stitch or the edge stitch to work it through both loops. So this is a personal preference, but if you want to try it out, then just skip this external stitch worked into the both loops at the end and at the beginning of the row as well. Then we will continue with slip stitches again until the end of the row, until we get to the edge of the sleeve. And then we will slip stitch. If you're not sure about the last stitch, if you should work into it or not, it's always better to count the stitches and make sure that you have the required number of stitches, and then slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the edge. And if you want to make a decrease, you can do it like so. Either you're skipping 1 stitch if you want to decrease for the cuff, either you're working two stitches together, the last slip stitch to be like two slip stitches or one slip stitch but through both stitches. I don't know how to explain it, but you saw how I did it. Okay, now I turn. So I had a decrease row and then I did my turning row as regular. Now I will have the turning row without them making any decrease. Then I will turn again. So basically at every 1, 2, 3, the fourth row will always be with a decrease. This is if you want to decrease for the cuff. Of course you can do the decreases on that single crochet row that we did before starting the ribbing. So if you find that it's difficult to decrease while making this ribbing, then you can simply decrease on the first row, and we will repeat this section until we will finish the entire cuff. And of course you will have to repeat in the same way on the second sleeve. And then after finishing with the sleeves, we will go and continue with our finishing, because we still have to work the bottom ribbing and the neckline ribbing, and then to assemble everything together, and we will be done after that. Again, I'm showing you how to make that decrease. If you want to decrease while working on the ribbing, if not, as I said, you can decrease on the single crochet row. Now let's finish the cuffs and then we will start working on the neckline ribbing or some other ribbing that we have. Okay, now that we finished with the cuffs, we will use the same stitch pattern, meaning the single crochet into the back loop only ribbing for the neckline. Now we will work first foundation round, which will be in single crochet stitches. So make sure that you're going to work on the right side, and because I thought that 10 stitches will be too much for the ribbing, I think I will go with 6. So now we will make a single crochet round, and as you can see we will work into this half double crochet side rows. And yeah, I'm always saying that when working into the side rows, it really depends on your tension and how small you can do the single crochet stitches, and of course how tall you did the half double crochet or the chain 2 at the beginning or at the end of the round of the row. So I'm starting and rejoining the yarn into the side, and I'm using the same 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, and I'm trying to go and keep the single crochet as close as possible. When I had a half double crochet at the end of the row, I saw that I cannot place two half double crochet with two single crochet in there, but on the chain 2 I could. So somehow this was the pattern that I was following. So going with one single crochet when I had a double or half double crochet side row, and with 2 single crochet when I had a chain 2 side row. But of course you can adjust on the row, and if you see that the half double crochet is a bit more taller, then you can go and work 2 stitches over there. Here I worked 3 stitches into the chain 2 and it was too much, so only 2 is better. And we will continue like this until we will finish this foundation row, let's just say, before starting working on the ribbing. try to go with your stitches right into those stitches at the end of the row and not under, especially when you're working into the chain 2. If you're going under, it won't look as neat and as nice as if you're going through the stitches. So now we will continue working on this base row, and now we will start with our ribbing after joining with the slip stitch into the first single crochet. And as I said, I will like to have a 6 stitches ribbing, so I will chain 7, and in the same manner as we did on the cuffs, we will start with single crochet into the back loop only ribbing. But pay attention that this time we won't do any decreases, so every time when you're getting to the edge of the neckline, you will need to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches of the neckline edge, like I did right here, and then we will skip those 2 slip stitches and go with single crochet into the back loop only, except the last stitch, because you know already I do like to make that last stitch through both loops. And we will repeat this 2 rows that we have over here until we will complete the entire circumference of the neckline. Okay, so this will be the 2 rows that we will need to repeat all. Okay, now that we finish with ribbing, we will need to join this ends. If you want, you can use the sewing your needle and stitch these edges together. If not, I will use slip stitches to just join these 2 pieces. I'm turning on the back because I don't want to have this edge on the front panel, and we will continue and join with slip stitches, making sure that we're going with the hook through both sides. And after that, the neckline ribbing will be done, and we're ready to move to the bottom hem ribbing. To secure this joining, you will still have to weave in that end, weave in, and I'm always making 1 more slip stitch here and then chain 1 to secure. Okay, now the bottom hem ribbing, I already finished one. I don't know if it's the front panel or back panel. And we will do the same thing as we did for the cuffs with all the decreases as well. Because of course I wanted bottom hem to be a bit narrower than the rest of the sweater, but if you want, you can do those decreases again on the foundation row that we will be doing in single crochet. Because we are working into the side rows, we are keeping the same pattern as we did on the neckline, so trying to go with 2 single crochet when it was chain 2 at the edge, and 1 single crochet into the half double crochet at the edge, or depending on your tension and how tall your stitches at the edge are, you can go with more single crochet. I don't think it will work to go with more than 2, because usually this is the proportion, chain 2 having 2 single crochet. But yeah, depending on your tension, and look that your stitches are as even as possible. It won't be perfect, but yeah, try to keep the spaces the spaces as equal as possible between single crochet stitches. And we'll continue with this row. If you want, you can do those decreases on this row. If not, you can wear the ribbing with the decreases as we did for the cuff. Now, after finishing with the first row, we will chain 11 and then we will start with our ribbing. Turn, start with the second stitch and single crochet into each stitch up to the edge, and into the edge we will do a slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. And then we will turn, skip those 2 slip stitches and single crochet into the back loop only. Again, I'm not saying it again, but the last stitch or the edge stitch will be with a single crochet through both loops. And the same as we did at the sleeve, you can decrease at every 4 row. And of course it should be at the edge made the decrease. Here I have, so it was my 3rd row, and now here is the second way to make that decrease. So I went through the first loop, pull out the loop, and then going into the next loop and pull it through all the loops on my hook. So now I will go with the turning row, and again 1 more. So this is my turning row after going into the edge with a decrease is my 2nd row, and on this one I'm not decreasing. And then on the 3rd row, that is ending at the edge, we will decrease again. So we will have 1 decrease and then 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th row we will decrease again. And we will repeat this section until we will finish the entire bottom hem ribbing. And then of course we will do both sides, front and back panel, and then we will move forward with the assembling. Okay, now that we finish with all the ribbings, we will fold this sweater in half and we will start sewing the edges, starting from the bottom hem and finishing with the sleeve cuff, or reverse, starting with the sleeve cuff and finishing with the bottom hem. And next I will show you how I'm doing the seaming. Okay, so I decided to start with the sleeve, and usually when I'm preparing the yarn to making the seam, I'm measuring the length that I need to sew, and I'm calculating to have a 3rd time that length. So you can do like this to just measure, and your yarn needs to be at least 3 times longer than the length that you need to sew. Of course that it's always better to have more. I just measured the sleeve here and I just put it in 6 just to make sure that I will have enough. And then we will start with the stitching, with the sewing. So I'm going to put the yarn through my needle. You will need a wide loop needle so that your yarn will fit in there. And we will start, and I'm making the seaming on the right side of my sweater. And I will use the so-called ladder stitch. I just found out after someone comment on the short tutorial that I did with this seaming method, and someone said that it's called ladder stitch. I didn't know back then, but I think it's true. It's looking like. So now I went into the first stitch of my right side, and then from front to back into the first stitch from my left side, and I'm making a knot here because I want to secure everything. And now, because we are stitching the ribbing and we have stitches, it's easier, so I'm simply going into the first stitch and then getting out with my needle through the second stitch, pulling all the yarn and then going into the left side through the first stitch and getting out with my needle through the second stitch. Now I'm going into the right side, I'm going into the same stitch where my yarn get out and going out into the next stitch, and we will continue like this until finishing the ribbing, and it will be the same procedure with the when sewing into the side rows, only that we will need to be more careful with those rows. So now I will go like here is my my top of the half double crochet, so I will go into that stitch and going into the bottom of the half double crochet, and then I will make sure that I will get out into the second chain, so like this. Now into the right side I will have a chain, so I'm going through the same bottom of the half double crochet and getting out through the second chain, and it will be reverse on the other side, going through the second chain and getting out through the bottom of the half double crochet. And we will keep waving like this until we will finish all the seaming to sew this side edge, and of course that we will need to repeat on the other side as well. And after we are all done with assembling, basically the sweater will be done. I didn't mention before, but I kind of weave in the ends just after finishing every panel, because you will have a few ends to weave in. So if you're doing it as you keep working, then you will have less work at the end of the or after finishing with everything, and it will be easier with seaming and with everything that you will need to do after all the finishing touches. Anyways, you'll still have to do that if you didn't do it, so to weave in the ends, to block the sweater if you want. If you're working with the same acrylic yarn or somehow an acrylic yarn that has great memory and is not stretching that bad, then it doesn't matter. Usually I'm washing all the projects that I'm finishing. I'm using the washing machine on a delicate program, and then I'm laying the project down flat to dry. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. It was a pretty long one, but I hoped that I covered everything that you needed to make this sweater. And yeah, see you next time.